perfectly normal to have disagreements or arguments with people from time to time. We like to share our opinions, maybe hear other people's points of view, and we really enjoy getting our point across and feeling heard and validated. But there are some people that are just argumentative people, like it is a personality trait, and they overly do it. So these type of people are really difficult, and it may feel like everything you say is a challenge and a battle. So that's why today we're gonna talk about how to deal with argumentative people. But before we get started, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Missy. I'm a life and relationship coach. And on this channel, we get to the root of the issue and we learn how to heal and deal. So if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to be a part of the fam. And if you already are a subscriber, you know I appreciate you so much. Also, don't forget to sign up for my Patreon so you can be a part of the Discord community. And if you're interested in any of my courses, they are linked down below. Let's get into today's video. So ideally, when it comes to difficult argumentative people, you'd want to stay away, but that's not always the case, as you may live with someone that's overly argumentative, you may have to co-parent with someone that's argumentative, you may have to work with someone that's overly argumentative. So you can't just not deal with them, you got to deal with them. And so it's a matter of how do you deal with these people. You need some tools. So let's first kind of understand more about argumentative people. Why are they so argumentative? Well, generally the personality traits they have, they usually are blunt, closed-minded, tough, and competitive. So they very much work off of their ego. So why are they like this and why are they so argumentative? Well, one reason maybe is they never felt heard in childhood. The way they have found their voice is by being competitive or overly argumentative, overly talking over others, not being a listener. This is how they feel heard, they feel validated, and they feel like their needs get met. They're filling some type of void inside of them by arguing. Even if it's negative energy, it's still filling something, and that's what they did in their childhood. It's just always arguing, always challenging. And they also may be a little bit rebellious because they were constricted or they were made to feel like they had to fit a certain mold. They're rebellious and they're always challenging and they're always trying to argue. Another reason is they may have grown up with a family that was overly argumentative and they always challenged everything, and so that's the only way they know how to communicate. It's just everything is an argument rather than just a conversation or just letting other people have different points of view. It's like, no, they have to push their point of view and they have to be the one that's like, no, this is the way things are and you're always wrong, because that's how their family was, or that's how they learned how to communicate. And the third reason is because they are in a constant fight response. They feel like they're protecting something, whether that's their ego or maybe a point that they're really sensitive about. They get into that fight mode where they immediately need to go on the attack, and anyone that doesn't think like them, they need to argue because they get in this protective mode and they feel like they're doing the right thing by arguing and by overly arguing about everything. So now we kind of understand why people are argumentative and their personality type. Let's talk about how to deal with these people. So we as humans, when we take some sort of action, it's usually because we have a goal in mind. For instance, when you vent, your goal may be that you want to be heard or you want some type of advice. When you confront someone, your goal may be that you're looking for some type of resolution, and on and on. So when you're dealing with an argumentative person, you have to, off the bat, before you even go into a conversation with them, if you know you have to talk about something, for instance, you have to think about what is your goal, what goal you're trying to achieve, because this will help you keep it on track, and so that way you can talk about exactly what you need to talk about and you think about the points that you need to talk about. So, but you want to be careful about what your goal is, because let's say, for instance, your goal is that you want to convince them that they're wrong. What's that going to result in? That's probably going to result in being a huge disagreement. It's going to be negatively draining, and there's just people that it's not worth telling them how they're wrong because they don't care to hear it. So you have to protect your energy and think, okay, well, what is your goal? Maybe that's not necessarily a good goal for you. Maybe your goal is that you want to come to some sort of common ground where you can compromise on something. So then when that's your goal, you have to be very aware and careful about your actions and what you do and how you talk about this topic. So that means that you have to do things like keeping your ego in check, not being defensive, you have to change your behavior based on your goal and never trying to control them or trying to control the outcome, because you can't control them. You can influence how they act based on how you react to them, but you cannot control them and how they feel. Just how they treat you can influence to some degree. If you try to control them and the way that they think, it's a losing battle. So some tips when dealing with an argumentative person and you have to go into battle: don't take anything they say personally. Just remember, they're coming from a low place. Anything negative they say to you that's unwarranted, that more so shows is a reflection on their part rather than on you. So, you know, it doesn't mean tolerate mistreatment, but if they happen to take a dig at you, you don't have to entertain it. You could be like, okay, let's focus on what we're supposed to be focusing. Cool. Let's focus on what we're supposed to be focusing on. If they ever are disrespecting you too much or getting hostile, you know you can always walk away and you don't have to be a part of the conversation. The next is avoid unnecessary disagreements. Before getting into a disagreement or when a disagreement is about to happen, ask yourself, is this really worth my time? Is it really worth getting into? What will I get out of having this conversation? Will I learn and grow? Will it help our dynamic in a sort of way? Do I really want to go there with this person? If not, you can always, you know, when they're starting to get into that disagreement, like, okay, you know, I don't really agree with that, so I don't really want to get into that. Or, you know, okay, you can have your opinion, but I don't really care to go into this conversation right now. And then dip. Next, listen without interrupting. So here's the thing, if you are someone that interrupts, what's going on is you're focusing on one key thing the person has said rather than listening to the whole thing. And then what happens when you get stuck in that one thing that person's saying, it can turn into a whole other conversation or disagreement, and it could be completely off topic. Or maybe you don't give them the time to finish what they're saying, so then you misunderstood what they're saying because you already played a story in your head of something they're saying, when you need to just let them finish their full statement before you have a rebuttal. And you can get stuck on thinking about your own point of view and your own agenda rather than really hearing what the other person is saying. And that is what results in bigger disagreements. So really just focus on listening, taking some pointers in your head, but really listening into what they're saying. If you ever misunderstand something, you can always say, can you clarify that a little bit further, what have you, and let them finish, and then, you know, say something. If they're going on and on, you could be like, okay, wait, hold on, you're going to too many points. Can we please talk about X, Y, and Z? I want to address some things. And remember, this has to do with arguments, not nastiness, not calling you names, none of that. You know, you don't need to go into those conversations. It's more so you have to talk about a topic and find some common ground or whatever it is. Next tip, find something you can agree on from the jump. It's so important that when you do answer back to what they're saying, you want to say something positive and something that you can have that common ground, because it will lower their defenses more likely. And when you do that, then they're more likely to hear what you have to say, because then they're ego stroked. You gotta do a little ego stroking, and then you can have an actual conversation. So each time they make a point, find something. There's always something, even if it's small, of being like, I could see why you feel that way, or okay, I understand what you're saying, or, you know, find some common ground. Oh yeah, I agree with this point. This other point though, you know, finding something first before immediately going, no, that's not what it is, or immediately going into that disagreement stage, because that really puts people's defenses up and then they want to fight you. Another thing, the language you use is super important. So, you know, we always hear use I statements, but it's not just that. You know, it's so important you do use those I statements so it's less threatening, but also why statements can also be threatening. So you said, why did you do this? You know, you can rephrase that question a little bit better, like, what made you want to do that, or whatever it is. You know, using what is less threatening than why, because why is like, you're questioning my actions, or, you know, that could be that will put the person on the defense. And also another thing, I actually just recently learned this and I thought it was so interesting. Instead of saying yes but, because but completely negates the rest of what you're saying, so you don't actually agree if you're saying yes, or you say a bunch of things then you say but afterwards. So you could say yes and, because you're adding to it. So you're agreeing and you're also adding, and that also is a positive way to continue a conversation. So that way they do feel heard and validated. Because remember, argumentative people, they're doing it because they personally want to be heard and validated. But definitely want to be careful with those you and why statements. When things get heated, I'm not talking about they go off the rails, nasty, disrespectful. I'm talking about like maybe your voices are getting raised or whatever it is. Immediately try to find a common ground, and you can take it back. Be like, wait a minute, okay, what is the goal here? What is your goal? And then you talk about what your goal is. So that's their goal, that's what your goal is. And be like, okay, seems like we have a common goal. Like maybe we both want to get this project done. Okay, maybe we both want what's best for our child. So let's focus on that, about what could be best for our child. You know, finding that common ground and that goal. Maybe you guys have completely different goals. Be like, okay, how can we come to some sort of similar goal? Like maybe you both want to get to the same page, or maybe you both want to do something that could help succeed in some sort of way. Whatever it is, try to find a common goal, so that way it winds up with you guys working together rather than working against each other. And don't ever be afraid if things kind of go haywire and you know, you get off topic, to come back and say, okay, what is the goal? What are we doing here? If you notice it's unproductive and you know there is no real goal, then say, okay, well then let's just agree to disagree, or let's just kind of walk away from this conversation because we're not really being productive here. Which goes to the next tip of keep it on topic. That's so important. So anytime it kind of goes off topic, be like, okay, let's bring it back. I noticed we were talking about bees and all of a sudden we're talking about apples. Let's bring it back to bees. Let's talk about bees again. That way it stays on what you need to talk about rather than talking about all the extra things and then getting overwhelmed and getting into the semantics, because we could definitely get into the semantics of things sometimes in arguments. So just focus on the task at hand and the thing that you want to address. If they do get loud and rowdy, show them how you want to be talked to. It's so important that you keep it very level-headed. Take deep breaths as much as you need to. If you need to come back from conversations, do that. But you want to be a constant. You want to have the same tone. You want to have the same kind of mindset. You don't want them to get the best of you. So you can show them by doing that. And also, if they're starting to get loud, be like, hey, listen, you know, we're getting a little too loud. Like, you know, I don't feel like I've gotten loud. Do you feel like I've gotten loud? Let's kind of just keep it low. And if they don't respect you, they don't want to change how they're talking to you, always walk away. Say, hey, listen, okay, I'm gonna walk away from this because it's not productive, and we can come back to this when you talk to me in a more respectful manner, or you lower your voice. When you maintain your cool, the other person eventually will feel like a jerk, and they will feel guilty, and they'll most likely come back and want to do better because now they feel embarrassed. They can't say that you were being nasty or whatever. I mean, a narcissist would lie and say that you were, but there's no evidence to show that you were, because you've been pretty much cool as a cucumber the whole time, and they're the one that was getting rowdy. And the last one is use facts over feelings. Especially with an argumentative person where they're coming from an ego, they don't really care about your feelings. They care about just proving you wrong, or whatever their goal is, that they just, again, they want to be heard. It comes from a very egotistical place. So sharing your feelings isn't always helpful. If that person shows that they're welcoming to hearing what you have to say and they're welcoming your vulnerability, absolutely, read the room. But if they are, you know, show that they don't really care, then don't even bother sharing your feelings. Focus on the facts. Because when you focus on the facts, they don't have anything really good to rebuttal. And then they will feel stupid and whatever. Maybe they'll go away from the conversation. Maybe they'll change their mind a little bit later, whatever it is. But when you focus on the facts, you're way more convincing. And you can, if other people are around, you can convince them too, because you're focusing on the facts rather than how you're feeling. Because feelings are good in certain situations, but they're not when it comes to disagreements with people that, you know, that are not necessarily your close loved ones, and they don't care about your feelings. They don't deserve to know your feelings. It's more so you have a goal and you're trying to achieve that goal of needing to talk about some sort of topic with them, and especially in work settings, that's really important. Side note, when it comes to arguing with a narcissist, keep it simple, keep it to the point. Don't even try to argue with them, and gray rock as much as possible. It's a whole other topic. This video is more so for just general argumentative people that are just in their ego. So here's some tips of how to deal with argumentative people. What do you guys think? Leave it on the comments below. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. I'm doing a video. Hello? Put headphones on. Okay. You can't see this, but I got a little